We're always waiting for the spotlight. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany.
I'm Megan.
And this is Southbound True Life Tales.
From the ATL and Beyond. What? Yes. This is our third show.
Yes.
Brittany, how are you?
I'm doing good, Megan. How are you?
It feels like we haven't done a show in forever.
I know. We just talk about doing the shows. I'm so excited for this evening. Oh, I love Juneteenth. It's like my new favorite federal holiday. Am I right?
Well, yeah, because it was made federal holiday 3 days ago, 4 days ago.
That's right, Megan. That's right. That is not in the trivia questions, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
that is
not. I feel like we should all know that by now.
It's our Freedom Day. Oh, for all Black Americans. I'm so excited. And it's also the day my little baby was born.
Oh, happy birthday, Michael Hope.
I know. She's 1 and she's asleep. So yay.
Yeah, sleeping.
Yeah, so we were having a little bit of a poll, a little trivia before. You know, I saw everybody. Now, Megan.
Yes.
Should we quiz each other?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, go ahead. Because I don't know, the percentages went away.
Oh, the percentages are gone. I know, I can't see. Oh, there we go.
Thanks, Amy. Shout out to Amy. Okay, now we don't have to quiz each other.
Thank you, Amy, rock star, stage manager, Zoom room guru.
Yes, Amy. Okay, so what state did Juneteenth originate in? Texas.
Texas. Most everybody got that right.
Most everybody got that right. Yes. One person was pulling for Georgia. We're not quite there. We're not quite
there yet.
Okay. What year did the events of Juneteenth occur? Okay. 71% got it right. 1865.
65. Okay, and then that's 1868 was 29%. All right, that's close.
Yeah. 3 years off.
No one voted 1776, so that's good.
Who put that date in there?
Who made the polls?
Okay.
I'm excited for tonight's show too.
Right.
Great. We've got 4 amazing storytellers and a musical guest.
Amazing.
Super excited.
I'm so excited. And last one, Megan, what does Juneteenth commemorate? Oh,
okay. Well, everybody, 96% got it right as well. The Emancipation Proclamation news. Yes, 2 years after.
Yes.
Our audience is really smart. And
I know.
I'm proud of us right now.
I know. Hopefully we'll learn even more after our amazing storytellers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think our show will run about 90 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we'll talk to our storytellers after each story.
I'm so
excited.
Anything,
Megan?
What'd you say?
Am I missing anything? Oh, we got to bring up Lisa.
Introduce Lisa, the woman behind it all, the mastermind, Lisa Adler.
Claps. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Jazz hands, all the things. What's up, Lisa?
Welcome, everybody. So glad you could join us tonight. This is our 3rd episode. As she said, we have 5 amazing storytellers, singers, songwriters. So we've got a mix of folks, all people. A lot of these folks are Horizon regulars. So we're thrilled to join us. Our first one, Tina Fears, is fearless actress activist. We have Tom Jones, director writer. We have Imara Canady, a dear friend who's also Horizon board member, Fulton County Arts Council leader, and a community leader extraordinaire who also knows Oprah. Man, if he knows Oprah, he knows everything. Yeah, he does. And Keena Redding on our staff, an actress and wonderful staff member, music director who's going to tell some stories. And finally, Eugene Russell, who's been on our stage, who's going to sing his original song. He was in Blackbird over at the Alliance and now coming to us. So thrilled that they could join us. I want to thank everybody that makes this possible. We are brought to you because of the generosity of our individual donors, some of whom are here tonight. We've kept going through this pandemic, and here we still are, almost ready to merge out the other side. But what we also thank are the Fulton County Arts Council, Fulton County Department of Arts and Culture, the City of Atlanta Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, the Georgia Council for the Arts, Schubert Foundation, Metropolitan Atlanta Arts Fund, Macy's, and many, many more, and individual donors who are out there. So thank you all for making us possible. Okay, it's back to you guys and on with the show.
We love you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, Megan, I think we can jump right in. What do you think?
Let's do it. Agreed.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I am so excited for this first performer because, hold on, let me pull up the bio. I'm about to just go into like my whole, how much I love her, how much she means to me. Hold on, let me read her bio. Okay. All right. Tina Fierce is our first storyteller this evening. She is a Los Angeles native who is proud to call Atlanta home. Tina takes pride in being both in the show and the business. She is the founder of Stage Ready, a full service production company. She's also performed in many stages all over Atlanta. And most recently, she played gospel singer Clara Ward in the National Geographic project Genius, Aretha, that premiered in March 2021 and is now on Hulu. Go watch it. All episodes are available. Tina is my co-founder of Blacked, and I am so thankful to have her here this evening. I want you to give a big virtual round of applause to my sister, Miss Tina Fierce. Yay!
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so honored to be with Horizon this evening. This is a first for me. So I'll be sharing a little bit about my experience as a little girl in Los Angeles, California, and what a Saturday morning, what I thought was a typical Saturday morning, which really ended up being my introduction to activism. So stay tuned for ponytails, popsicles, and parades. You have 3 seconds to get out that bed and don't let me say it again. My mother's voice filled the room I shared with my younger sister. She said it without even breaking her stride. It was Saturday morning, which means the ceremonious activity of getting our hair shampooed in the kitchen sink, which included a blow dry with either a press for special occasions or church, or ponytails were on my mother's hair care menu that day. I hurried to finish my cereal because I was next in the chair. My sister, who refused the cereal, cornflakes and bananas with ice to make sure the milk was extra cold, had requested that my dad made pancakes. Now, what my little sister wanted, she always got. So my dad made pancakes. And as my little sister styled her baby Kiana doll's hair, while my mother worked her magic on mine. My mother's big comb slid down the middle of my scalp, sectioning my hair evenly so that it could be brushed and then pulled into thick, big puffs. Just when I felt the last band snap down on my scalp, she started twisting my hair, one over the other, adding tension with each tug. When my hair was completed, it felt like I was crowned with a customized tiara, because even as a little girl, I felt like royalty after my hair was done. Breakfast was over, and the kitchen beautician was 3 steps ahead of the entire household, because our outfits for the day were already ironed and laid out on our beds. I still never understood how she was able to do our hair, clean our rooms, and iron our clothes all before we finished breakfast. My sister and I were quick to put on our matching denim overalls, but scrunchy socks and boots, I was a little thrown by the boots because we normally wore our sandals on the weekends, but for some reason, boots were required for this day. We sat in the living room impatiently awaiting my mom to emerge. Looking like a pair of chocolate Doublemint twins, the only thing that you could tell us apart by was the slight height difference in the number of ponytails on our head. We wasted time practicing our harmonies. We were finally finding our voices as singers, and were truly amazed when we could make our ears ring after we sung together. My dad, the resident vocal coach, corrected our notes as he headed out to a recording studio. He said, "Tina, you sing that bottom note. Tiffany, always stay on the top," as he exited and closed the door. My mother stepped out in her high-waisted ripped jeans, t-shirt with Nefertiti's face on it, and a kente print hat in the shape of a crown. We called it her helmet. If anyone got out of line and my mother put that hat on, trouble was on the way. I knew something was different about this day. I couldn't put my finger on it at the time, but even as a small child, I could feel it. My mom didn't have on her sandals either, not even the pretty high-heeled ones. She had on boots too. So we hopped in the backseat of our big car and made the drive from the Valley to Inglewood. Imagine driving from Lawrenceville to Atlanta. This 30-minute drive where the cultural and economic differences were visible even from a child's perspective. But Inglewood was different because it was at the epicenter of Black joy. It bubbled with ownership, just like the movie The Wood. Black people were establishing themselves and their community, desiring to create a solid foundation for their children. We drove past the Forum, the arena where Magic Johnson played for the Lakers. Randy's Donuts. You guys have seen it, the building with the big donut on it. It's been on shows like Bernie Mac and Iron Man too. What I now know as historical landmarks were simply familiar images from my childhood. We finally arrived at the big park, where crowds of people of all ages were gathered. Cars were lined up with banners on the side of their doors, some with the names of church organizations, youth groups, the NAACP. I even saw Nelson Mandela's face on one, and lots of red, black, and green flags. Music filled the air. It was a combination of live music and music from the radio. Laughter and high fives were sprinkled in as well. This felt like my family reunion without everyone being related or wearing t-shirts that were all the same color. We walked behind my mom quickly, who insisted that we held hands and stay close, and we wouldn't dare let her have to say it twice. I watched my mother closely, with her head held high as she navigated the crowd. Though she was wearing her helmet, which often meant it was time to stand up for your rights, she beamed with pride this day, as she was complimented by those she passed. I love your crown, sister," a man with a red, black, and green peace sign around his neck said. We joined a small group of people who were standing along the sidewalk. We all looked towards the empty street. I remember doing this when we went to Disney. All of my favorite characters were walking the street singing "It's a Small World After All." But this felt different, yet familiar and safe. A tall man with a megaphone was in the middle of the street. He seemed to be giving out instructions, but I couldn't make out what he was saying. He was followed by those cars I saw earlier with the banners and signs on the side of them. I soon saw beautiful brown faces waving, singing, and holding signs with various phrases painted on them. Suddenly, we heard a wave of cheers heading down the street. And when the cheers arrived to us, I saw a beautiful woman with big hair and an even bigger smile sitting on the back of a convertible. The banner on the side of her car said, "M. Waters, 29th District Representative." She must have been important because people jumped up and down at the sight of this woman who looked like my grandmother, my mother, and me. Who was she? Why were people so excited? I pulled on the strap of my mom's big leather bag and asked who she was. My mother said, "She's a member of the House of Representatives. Remember I told you that we can be anything that we want to be?" The combination of what my eyes saw and what my ears heard threw me. It was that feeling I felt when I saw the one Black cheerleader taking the blue mat on ESPN with some predominantly white institution, or the feeling I felt when the Miss America pageant would come on and a contestant had the same dark skin and thick dark hair like me. Was I proud? Was I inspired? Did I see possibility? Absolutely. You see, even as a child, I was rooting for her and the idea of her role in this world. Those observing from the sidewalk quickly began to flood the streets. It was like an electric charge hit the sidewalk and everyone moved at once. Was this supposed to happen? I mean, cars drive here and not just any old cars, because we're not cars, we're people. My analytical way of processing things is not new. My mom turned to me with a big smile on her face and grabbed my hand and told me to grab my sister. Before I knew it, we were now a part of this sea of people singing and clapping and celebrating their Blackness, our Blackness. What I was on the verge of experiencing fear quickly subsided, because like my family reunion, this felt safe and it felt like home. You see, traffic stopped for us. Public buses stopped for us. It didn't matter if the traffic light was green, this sea of happy Black people was coming through. It almost sounded like we were marching to the beat of a drum. I think those boots we had on helped amplify the sound. As our crowd began to descend upon a big building, my sister spotted a corner store that had popsicle decals on the window. Now, though what my sister wanted, she always got, I think we all spotted that store because we made a beeline in need of a treat. You see, we were cute, but hot and cute don't go well together. We enjoyed our popsicles and took our time as we walked back to the park. We could still hear the singing and chanting behind us. I remember seeing murals of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. I remember bookstores with the doors open and carts of books lining the sidewalks. I remember the sweet smell of incense and the savory smell of barbecue. I remember the vibrant colors, the good music that never stopped, and all the smiles. I could start to see our car in the distance, which was my motivation to keep walking. By this time, my sister was on my mom's back. Her little feet were tired and her sweet tooth had been satisfied. We arrived at the car. I quickly slid into the back seat. I was exhausted, but I couldn't go to sleep, not yet. I wanted to take in every last drop from this special day. My mother must have been able to see that my mind was going from her rearview mirror because she started to ask me questions. You see, my mom was intentional about asking me what I saw, what I heard, and how it made me feel. She always said, understanding is what makes things stick. I am my mother's daughter because I find myself doing the very same thing with my son. It's never simply about experiences. It's about purpose and understanding the heartbeat behind each moment, because that's what makes things stick. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
It was so great.
So good.
Thanks, guys. I'm
I
like
was
trying to chug water.
I was just in it with you.
Were you in it? Yay.
Yes. Well, you helped me because you paint the movies. You know, I'm from South Carolina, so you said the wood and you know, you
Yeah.
the stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, because you know, Los Angeles is like the fantasy place, you know. So
Right. Yeah.
I was in it. I was in it. That was great.
Right.
What was that particular rally or march for?
So I have asked my mom, right? And it turns out we attended so many things. It might have been, this might have been like post Rodney King and all of that. So I think there was something that was happening in the city that had to do with like equal opportunity or something like that. But the approach to this particular rally, hopefully I was able to articulate that, was one of joy being an act of resistance.
Yeah.
And so it's very important for me to introduce our viewing audience here at the Horizon to a different take on activism. You know, recently what we experienced this summer was very emotionally charged, but for our people, we are so layered. And us taking to the street with banners and flags and cultural wear and music, some things that organically happened last summer for us, it's important that people understand that there are different ways that we can approach our activism. And I think if it would have been something that was a little more violent, my mom with her helmet on, you know, her crown, she wouldn't have had us out there. But what I read this to my sister this morning, and she was saying, I remember vaguely that Saturday mornings with free ponytails and sandals was one thing. If you got them boots laced up and you have on overalls, that means we're either going to Venice Beach. That means we're going to be downtown Atlanta, you know, somewhere where you need to be able to move and maneuver. So I can't tell you exactly what it was. And my mother hasn't even heard this, but it's kind of a combination of things because we were so little. So I just tried to pick what I remembered specifically. But I remember the signs. I believe Nelson Mandela was the president by this time. And so I remember seeing that too. So this is clearly like the 90s, you know, the mid 90s.
Maxine Waters. So
yes, Maxine Waters.
Amazing.
Yes. It was like and again, it just didn't, there were certain things that I remember vividly. And then I would try to like go back and research. And I'm like, okay, wow. So this was her district. And she wasn't, I think she might've been like someone who was kind of highlighted at that event. I don't think that was necessarily her district, but people just went up for her. And it was representation, you know, before we knew it as we do now. So
yeah, it's almost like, Tina, you should put on that type of event every Juneteenth.
Okay, Brittany, something else to do.
Well, Tom is going to talk about what Juneteenth used to be with Jomani, which was like that, you know, the old Jomani days. So, but it's got to come back now, right?
Yeah.
So, for sure. And Tina, maybe you have to become a politician.
Oh wow!
We just giving you all the stuff on the horizon.
Maybe that was what it was calling to you back when you were a child.
So?
You know?
Oh,
I don't know.
No.
People don't know. Politics, religion, and actors, they all go together, you know.
It kind of goes together, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they kind of do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Tina, so much for sharing
so
your story.
much,
That was
Tina.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so honored. Again, I'm so honored to be here. This was a first, and I'm so thankful for it. So thank you all.
We're honored
Yes,
to have
of
you. It
course.
was great. So great.
Yep.
Great.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Tina.
That was
Rick, is it
great.
time to bring up our next storyteller, do you think?
I think so. Keep them rolling, Megan.
Keep going. Okay, so you guys, our next guest is an actress, singer, teacher, writer, music director, and activist. I love this lady. She's worked around Atlanta in various theaters, including the Lyric, the Alliance, Georgia Shakespeare, and is currently the major gifts manager right here at Horizon Theater. Well, not here because we're virtual, but here at Horizon Theater. And up next, she will be appearing in the one-woman show, The Pink Unicorn, with Outfront Theater, and it will be at Art Station in 2022. So please welcome to the virtual stage, Keena Redding. Woo!
Hi, I am so excited to be doing this. So thank you so much for asking me, Lisa. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Megan. As Megan has already so wonderfully said, I am an artist and activist. And this story is about my mom, Mary Ann Scott Redding. Now, she was my shero, my best friend, my biggest fan, and the chief racial equity officer of the Redding family, fighting racism on behalf of her 3 children 40 years before anyone even knew what a chief racial equity officer was. I am the eldest of those 3 children. And we moved to Fayetteville, Georgia from College Park when I was 12 years old. And when we moved to Fayetteville, there was 1 traffic light and a Winn-Dixie. And then beautiful, pristine green pastures with cows and gorgeous farmland as far as the eye could see. Unfortunately, I was a week late starting 7th grade at my new school, Fayette County Junior High School, because I had the chicken pox. And I had 4 things going against me when I started my new school. 1, I had chicken pox scabs all over my face. 2, I'm really tall. Now you can't see me because I'm sitting down, but I'm 5'11". And even at age 12, I was 5'9.5", which meant I was taller than most of the people at the school, including the teachers. 3, my pants were too short. Now, nowadays when you go shopping, you get a size 9 and you can get tall, extra curvy, extra wide, whatever you want. But in the 70s, when you went shopping, your size 9 was just a size 9. So if your pants were too short, they were just too short. And mine were. As a matter of fact, the kids like to say, they like to sing to me. They like to sing, "Wade in the water," because the pants were called high waters back then. That happened. Okay, and thing number 4, I tested into all gifted classes, which meant at that time I was the only person of color in all of my gifted classes. So Fayetteville was a small town back then, and most of the kids had gone to school together since kindergarten. So when my super tall, chickenpox scabbed, high water wearing, gifted self got to my new school, the kids looked at me like I was a space alien. Now, do you remember that cartoon, George of the Jungle? It had a theme song. It went, "George, George, George of the Jungle, friend to you and me. George, George, George of the Jungle, watch out for that tree." Yep, you guessed it. Some of the boys thought it would be cute every time I walked down the hall to yell out, "Watch out for that tree." Yeah, not very good, huh? Now, both of my parents worked in Atlanta, so they made the commute from Fayetteville to Atlanta every day. My dad worked at Colonial Baking Company as a large equipment mechanic, and my mom was a school teacher at E.L. Connolly Elementary School, also in Atlanta. Now, my mother wasn't the kind of woman who resorted to spanking and all of that. She didn't have to, because if we were doing something she didn't want us to do or misbehaving, she would just give us a look, And we would stop doing whatever we were doing right then because we knew she meant business. So when we moved to Fayetteville, she told us, if I ever have to leave my school in Atlanta to come all the way out here to Fayetteville because of something you did, I'll spank your behind all over that school. And we knew she meant it. So we really didn't get into trouble. I mean, we were really good kids. And so I was making good grades. I held my own in all my gifted classes, making identical grades to the students around me. I mean, especially in my English classes, that was my favorite subject. I especially got great grades. And so imagine my surprise when we got our report cards in my English class and my grade was a B minus. Now, all of the other students had A's and A pluses. And so I turned to my left and I asked the student next to me, I said, what grade did you get? And he said an A plus. And I turned to my right and I asked the student next to me and I said, what grade did you get? And she said an A plus. Now, I knew I had made identical grades to them, so I was really concerned about my B minus. Now, I could tell my English teacher did not care too much for me by the way she answered my questions compared to how she answered the other students' questions. But I gathered my courage and I raised my hand rather timidly and I said, I'm actually going to call her Mrs. White because she was a white woman. I said, Mrs. White. She said, yes, Keena. May I please come to your desk? I have a question. Okay, Keena. So I got up and I went to her desk. What is it, Keena? I think there might be a problem with my grade. I mean, I have a B minus and all of the other students have A's and A. You have a B minus because that's what you deserve, Keena. Well, but actually, I think there's been a mistake. I think your grade is a B minus, Keena. Now sit down. Yes, ma'am. So I sit down with huge tears in my eyes. And it was then that I decided to call my mother. So I got myself together and I raised my hand again. What is it, Keena? Why do you continue to interrupt my class? May I please go to the principal's office? I don't feel well. Go. I went straight to the principal, Mr. Phillips' office, and asked the secretary, Mrs. Smith, to use the phone, and I called my mom. Now, Mrs. Kemp, E.L. Conley's school principal, happened to answer the phone, and she was an amazing principal and person. And when I said, Mrs. Kemp, this is Keena, she said, Keena? Are you okay, honey? What's going on? I tell her exactly what happened, and she says, where are you? I said, I'm in the principal's office. And she said, you stay right there. I'll go and get your mom. Now, you have to understand, E.L. Conley's elementary school was in two separate buildings. One building was for the younger students, and the other building was way across campus, and that's where my mother taught, and that was for the older grades. And there was no intercom that connected the two schools, and there were no cell phones back then, of course, right? So Mrs. Kemp had to walk all the way over to the other building to get to my mom, and then come all the way back to the phone. And the next voice I hear on the phone is my mother's voice. And Mrs. Kemp had already told her what happened because I told Mrs. Kemp what happened. And my mother said, I'll be there in 40 minutes, Keena. Stay in the principal's office until I get there. Yes, ma'am, I said. 40 minutes later, my mother walks into the principal's office. She goes to Mr. Phillips and she reintroduces herself. She says, I'm Miss Redding. I'm Keena's mother, and I think you probably remember me from parent-teacher night. And Mr. Phillips said, oh, of course, Miss Redding, of course I remember you. And she said, I really need to speak with Mrs. White concerning a discrepancy with Keena's grade. And Mr. Phillips said, well, actually, Mrs. White is teaching right now, and I don't think, and my mother said, oh, actually, I understand about teaching. I teach at E.L. Conley Elementary School in Atlanta, and I drove all the way here to Fayetteville to speak to Mrs. White about a problem with my daughter's grade. So I really need to speak with her because I need to get back to my school because my students are taking a standardized test today. And Mr. Phillips said, oh, of course. I will send Mrs. Smith down to Mrs. White's class to sit with her class so that Mrs. White can come up here. And my mother said, thank you so much. And so Mrs. White is called to the office and she comes in and my mother reintroduces herself. She said, I'm Mrs. Redding and this is my daughter Keena. And I think you probably remember me from parent-teacher night. And Mrs. White goes, oh, yes, Miss Redding. Oh, I remember you. And oh, Keena, I just love Keena. She's doing such a great job in my class. And she's so smart and so sweet. And she's just doing a wonderful job. And my mom was smiling at her. And Miss White goes on and on and on and on, all diplomatic and all smiles. And we all go into Mr. Phillips' office and have a seat. And my mom was smiling at her. And she my mother reaches into her purse and pulls out her grade book and puts it on the table. And she looks at Mrs. White and she says, you know, Mrs. White, you might not know this, but I'm a teacher in the Atlanta Board of Education. And I brought my grade book here, and I just want to show you how I calculate my grades. And my mother points in her grade book. She said, you see this line here? This is a student I have, and you can see all of his grades lined across here. And how I calculate my grades is I add all those grades together, and then I multiply them by the number of grades, by the number of entries, and then that right here on the bottom is the total. That's the total. That's his grade for the year right there. And you can see this line right here explains all the totals for all the students. And that's how I calculate my grades. How do you calculate yours? And Miss White looked at my mother and she said, oh my goodness. I think that I might have made a mistake. I think I might have given Keena a B minus, and I think, well, you know what? I think she deserved an A plus. I'm so sorry. I will go and change that right now. And my mother said, well, you go and do that. Thank you so much, with a big smile on her face. And then my mother looked at me and she said, Keena, honey, I'm going to go on back to my school now because my students are taking a test, but I will see you at home, all right? And she kissed me on the cheek, and then she left. And then after she left, Mr. Phillips and Mrs. White were going on and on about how sweet and kind and polite and professional my mother was. I thought they were ridiculous. I mean, because they obviously did not notice my mother's eyes. I mean, she was looking at Mrs. White like she was a bug my mom wanted to squash. Her eyes were shooting darts of anger at Mrs. White, even though my mother kept a Southern Belle smile on her face the whole time. As a matter of fact, throughout the entire meeting, I had been petrified my mom was going to jump across the table and slap Mrs. White right across her face if she did not change my grade. I remember finally exhaling when Mrs. White said she would correct my grade to an A+. This is my mom with her lovely lemony brown Southern Belle smile. She died at the age of 53, just 13 short years after that incident. She was beautiful, brilliant, and unapologetically Black. There are so many more horrible stories I could tell you about racism that my family and I experienced and continue to experience both in school and in our everyday lives. However, in the story I just shared of injustice against me as a child, I can't help but wonder how many other little Black children's parents can't get off work to go to the school to fight for their children's grades or rights. How many students have been and still are being adversely treated? I'd like to leave you with these words. Georgia just passed a law that makes it illegal to teach critical race theory in K through 12 classrooms, which is the study of how slavery and racism has negatively affected Black and brown people in this country. I ask you, how can we move forward and heal as a nation if we are unwilling to address the injustices of our past and the current injustices inherent in an unfair system? When will we truly live in a society without racism, in a country that is genuinely fair and equal, where Black and brown children and adults like me do not live with the constant trauma, demoralization, and oppression caused by a systematic discrimination, and are not mistreated because of the color of our skin? Thank you for listening. The end.
Thank you, Keena.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Very moving story.
And I'm so glad you brought that up at the end. I have to call you Miss Keena because I didn't realize I'm an adult and I'm going to say Keena. It's really the little girls say Miss Keena. I'm glad you brought that up at the end. Thank you for adding that, because there's been a lot of discussion that because Congress passed a law to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, it's maybe a Band-Aid to say, you know, well, we'll just do this, so then maybe Black Americans will be happy. But at the same time, you pass laws that directly affect us in a negative way. The new voter suppression law in Georgia, the law you just mentioned, And I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, because I think, you know, in this rejoicing of celebrating Juneteenth, we have to also remember what's being done still in 2021.
Still.
Yeah. What and I'm sure you felt like that, Keena, when you heard about the holiday. I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We actually talked about it in a staff meeting, didn't we, Lisa?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for
you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to participate in this. So thank you so much.
You're amazing.
Your mother sounded like an awesome woman, like a really amazing.
Truly was. Truly.
So awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
What was the upshot of the rest of your school? I'm curious, Keena. Did that teacher, did she ever give you more trouble, or was that it out of her?
That was it out of her, because I mean, she didn't want to have to be called back up to the principal's office.
I wrote in the chat when she said, "This is how I calculate my grades. How do you calculate yours?" I said, "Dang, I would have been woo, shook, you know." So,
No joke, for sure. Sounds like a fearsome woman. That's really great.
yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Inspiration.
That was great.
Great story. Really
Yeah. Megan, we just trucking along.
I know. We're doing all right.
Yeah.
Is it time for another trivia, or?
It is. No, you're right. You're right. It is. Okay. When did Juneteenth become an official Texas state holiday? All right. Let's see.
I know the answer to this.
Do you not know?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
But I only know because I looked it up.
I would guess 1976, but I
Okay.
don't know.
Well, a fact I learned in researching for the show is that Juneteenth was really celebrated during Reconstruction.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Jim Crow hit, and it was kind of not a lot of pictures, not a lot of parades, not a lot of celebrations. And it was very sad to see. And you kind of saw it at the beginning with our slideshow. Like there was like 1905 and 1910, and the next one was like 1985. Yeah. So in the 70s, and it started to gain back some celebrations. Okay.
So what's the accurate year? Oh, 80.
1980.
Okay.
1980. Okay, we were kind of split up, but most people got that right. Good job. Good job, audience. Good job.
Audience, you are doing a great job tonight.
They are.
Yes.
All right. Want to bring up our musical guest?
Yeah, why not? Let's do it. That sounds fantastic.
All right, guys. We're going to bring up our musical guest, and this video is pre-recorded for sound purposes. Oh, my computer crashed on me. Oh, here we go. Okay, our musical guest is Eugene H. Russell IV, born and raised in Southwest Atlanta. He is a multi-talented vocalist, musician, songwriter, and award-winning actor. A saxophonist since elementary school, he's gone on to share stages with artists such as Grammy winners Ann Nesby and India Arie, as well as jazz legend Earl Klug and the French-based duo Les Nubians. Eugene IV had the honor of composing the music for the Alliance Theater world premiere of Beautiful Blackbird, as well as recently its animated feature film entitled Sit-In. Without further ado, Mr. Eugene H. Russell IV.
Peace, y'all. I'm Eugene, also known as Eugene IV, also known as Eugene H. Russell IV. ATL based, born and raised. I'm gonna share a tune with you called Brand New Day that I released last year. You can go to eugenethefourth.com, check it out. You can download it or go to any music streaming site and just put in Eugene IV. That's Roman numeral 4, Brand New Day, and it'll come up. The meaning behind the song is this. It's a real special song for me. It's a song that I released after many years of having not released any studio tunes. And it was inspired by a conversation I had with someone I consider a civil rights icon, Vincent Harding. He actually co-wrote some speeches for Dr. King. And so before Vincent passed, I had a conversation with him, and he challenged me in my artistry to paint a picture of the new day that I long for. You know, paint a picture of what better looks like. So that's what I believe I did in this song. And it features a sample of my mom singing. I lost my mom in '09, but I found a bunch of her old rehearsal tapes and heard her sing this phrase and knew that it was the perfect match for this song concept. So I hope you enjoy. Yeah, we're gonna dream a little bit on this one, y'all. Actually, let's call it a vision.
This morning saw a brand new day.
Same up.
I got up this morning, saw a brand new day.
I got up this morning, saw a brand new day, so I figured I'd write a song about
Saw a brand new day.
it. Ride with me. Close your eyes if you want to.
Saw a brand new day.
Wish my mom could see it. Hey, I can hardly believe it. So take my hand and see it. Like a sunrise through God's eyes. See that cop on the corner? He lives here and knows everybody. See that building on the corner? Means less to him than our bodies. And our kids can be kids when he's near, cause he works for the people. And we can fire the ones who don't serve and don't work for the people. And it's a beautiful day to be us and be we and be free to be free. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day, yeah. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. See that bank on the corner, hey, it's invested in the people. Oh, now look who's the owner. How the tables have turned for the people. See, now they got loans for their homes and got loans for their business and got the power to back who they feel as a mind for their interest. And it's a beautiful day to be us and be we and be free to be free. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day, yeah. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. Yes, I did, hey. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day, yeah. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day, yeah. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I got up this morning, saw a brand new day. I don't know if I'll see this brand new day in my lifetime, but for my children, and the sake of my children's children, we gonna see it. I promise you. Hey, yeah. Wish my mom could see it. Wish we all could see it.
Yes, what a great anthem. What a great anthem. After all this year, after all we've been through, thank you for that, brother. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was great.
We all needed it.
Yeah, yeah. And we need it for our kids. I can say that now. Our kids so weird, but yeah, I love that part. So
Yeah,
thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you trying to sow those seeds, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So we want to hear about what's next, Eugene.
yes.
Oh, what is next? Gosh, a lot of things in the works. Working on another
well, a couple of other projects. Well, I guess I shouldn't have said that because I don't think I can speak on those. I'll speak on the stuff that I know I can speak on. I hate it when people do that, right? They're like, hey, I can't really tell you all what I want to tell you, but it's big. I'm like, so I can't really celebrate with you because I have no idea what it is.
Right.
But, but the stuff that I can tell you about, so the animated short. Well, first of all, thank you all for letting me be here. Good to see you, Lisa.
Oh
Good
my
to see
gosh,
you.
you're amazing, Eugene.
Yeah, Eugene, so good to see you.
I appreciate y'all. But yeah, so one thing that I've got going, so the music that I did compose for the Alliance animated short sit-in, I'll be releasing it as an EP,
Oh, great.
probably next month. Also doing a remix to one of the tunes from the beautiful Blackbird cast recording that we released some years ago. Doing a remix to a tune on there called Beacon Wing. Um, I am also working on a couple of other solo things. Oh gosh, I'll probably think of something as soon as we're done.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
Just some more composer gigs in the works. I will say that I can't really speak on yet, but I'm grateful that the composer gigs are picking up and I'm getting to write more and more, and really excited to delve into some orchestration too. I'm getting a chance to arrange some strings and
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
trying to get my Terrence Blanchard on.
Yeah. Now sit-in, is that still available? I know it ran on PBS, right? I mean, where can people see that still? Is it still out there?
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about this city is all the theaters pull for each other. So Lisa won't mind me saying, if you go to Alliance
Oh,
Theater.
yeah, that's absolutely.
I love about ATL.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's alliancetheater.org, and I probably on the front page or something. I don't know, but if you go there and just put in sit in, you'll see it. I also was able to one of the highlights of the past year for me, I was able to compose the music for another piece that the Alliance did called Sounds of the West End. And that starred my baby girl, because I've got two daughters, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so my baby girl was the star of that. I think you only see like my wife's legs or something. I don't know. But my baby girl was in it. So I was able to compose the music for 2 of those 4 episodes.
That's amazing.
And I think that's still on the website as well. And I'm in the middle of a citywide Blackbird tour, the band from Blackbird.
Oh.
Kind of touring the city this month. So I'll try to look it up and maybe send the info. I'm not sure if we have any public performances left. We're surprising an elementary school in the Atlanta area with a pop-up performance.
Are you taking the show? Or are you taking just the music, or is the whole thing going?
Good question. Just the band. We got funky, like Earth, Wind, and Fire looking.
Yeah.
Costumes or whatnot. And just the band. So I'm up front on vocals and sax, and we've got Ali Joy. I forgot what her full name. I forgot what all she goes by.
Yeah.
Got her own vocals, and Brandon and Ali and Jermaine on bass, djembe, drum, and guitar.
That's beautiful.
I dropped your website in the chat.
Yes.
And well, we're all looking forward to everybody starting to be live again. Sounds like you already are live, which is fabulous. We're so great to have things opening up again, right?
Yeah, it felt so good. Our first Blackbird show. Oh, go ahead. My bad. What'd you say, Megan?
I was saying, and your insanely talented family.
Right, everybody.
Hey, in all transparency, trying to fight that imposter syndrome that artists fight. I'm so hard on myself, y'all. So, if we ever out somewhere and I start talking about myself, just tell me to shut up.
No, never gonna happen. Never going to happen.
I'm dogging myself, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we'll have to get Naima, your lovely wife out here to do her own story sometime. So we'll
have to do a story.
Yeah, doing a thing.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Good.
Eugene, thank you.
Thank you all for having me. Appreciate y'all.
You're wonderful.
Hey, Megan.
What'd you say, Brittany?
No, I just said, all right, Megan.
I know. Oh my gosh. That's like, we've only got 2 more storytellers.
I know. We're almost done.
I know. We're like over halfway. Woo! Yeah. How you doing? You doing all right, Brittany? You hanging in there?
I'm doing good. I feel like we're like trugging along. I was like looking at the clock. I was like, we're moving tonight.
Yes, a little bit. It's good.
Yeah.
So should we bring up our next storyteller?
I think let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. So you guys, our next storyteller is currently serving as National Director for Communications and Community Engagement for AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the world's largest nonprofit HIV/AIDS service and advocacy organization, and chair Black Leadership AIDS Crisis Coalition. Imara Canady is referred to as the all-around go-to guy by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He's highly respected executive leader, nationally known for building partnerships and collaborations that have a sustainable community impact. Prior to his current role, Imara served as the area development director for the Atlanta regional office of the United Negro College Fund and vice president of programming and strategic partnerships for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights and part of the founding leadership team. He's also had a long career in government, working for former Atlanta Mayor Bill Campbell, Vice President Al Gore, and was a key aide for former Atlanta Mayor Shirley Franklin. This is amazing. Imara has a strong passion for art and culture and has worked with the City of Atlanta Office of Cultural Affairs, the 1996 Cultural Olympiad of the Centennial Olympic Games, the National Black Arts Festival, the High Museum of Art Community Outreach Committee, inaugural advisory board member, and current board chair for the Bronze Lens Film Festival, and is a current appointee to the Fulton County Arts Council. He was recently honored to work with Oprah Winfrey and the OWN Network team around the international launch and execution of the week-long series Belief. Currently residing in Grant Park in Atlanta, Imara was raised in Atlanta, Georgia, graduated from Northside School of the Arts and Georgia State University, and he's a member of Horizon Theater's board of directors. So please welcome to him to the virtual stage, Imara Canady.
Oh, all of that, I was wondering who you all were talking about. So
You've done a lot, Imara, my goodness.
Oh gosh, maybe that's why I need to go take a nap real quickly. So, but it's good to be back here in Atlanta. I literally just got back from a wonderful day in Dallas, Texas, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity to be here with my Horizon family and Eugene, oh my God, and Keena, and just, I mean, all of the stories are just amazing and beautiful. So Lisa and Megan and Brittany, thank you all so much for what you're doing to keep theater and the arts alive, even in this virtual space, as we slowly begin to, come back together, as one community in our theater venues. So thank you and good to be here. So, I have been so blessed to be raised in this community. My mother, who is sitting next to me, as we sit here on, I don't know if it would be, I guess I call it a porch, but ever since the Golden Girls, I've always really wondered, when does a porch become a lanai? So, but for the sake of this, we'll just call it a porch here in the Southeast corridor of Atlanta. And, I've gone through my journey. I've been thinking a lot about these three young African-American men that were very much a part of my life. And I wanted to share their stories as we, celebrate and lift up and honor this moment in history where we have seen Juneteenth become a federal holiday and elevating the impact and importance of Juneteenth all across this country. So for the sake of the story, I'm not going to refer to their names because I do want to respect their privacy, but I'll kind of give you the background and set the context for these three amazing young brothers. One was a young brother who grew up in the Southwest corridor of Atlanta and really experienced a lot of the intense stigma that was associated with Southwest Atlanta simply because of stereotypes and the lack of education and awareness of the broader community. The other was an amazing young brother who, when I first met him, went to one of the top 5 private schools in the nation and really had a great opportunity to experience so many unique individuals through that experience. And the third was another amazing young African-American brother who really had a great history and great opportunity of working really at the helm of some of Atlanta's great mayors and had the opportunity to really get connected and embraced and loved by many of the civil rights leaders in this community. Now, what's interesting is all three of these young brothers knew each other well. But what really kind of was an interesting dynamic between each of them is that, the young brother who grew up in Southwest Atlanta really was kind of sometimes told that, opportunities wouldn't exist for him, or, that was disconnected because of purely the environment that he was raised in. Because again, at the time of his growing up in the late 70s and early 80s, there was still a lot of interesting conversations about Southwest Atlanta, minus the fact that many of our great leaders, our great mayors and civil rights leaders also came and were still living in this community. This other young brother who went to this amazing private school really was given, a lot of praise and was thought to have a great trajectory in life simply because of the environment of having been um, academically growing in one of these top 5 private schools. But yet, something that was very interesting that really shifted his life a lot, and in some ways connected he and this young brother who grew up in Southwest Atlanta, was a moment in his journey that forever impacted his life. And I will ask for your forgiveness as I use certain terminology to really contextualize this story, but I want to take you back to a moment that he shared with me during his 8th grade year at this institution, where one of his closest and dearest friends, a beautiful young Caucasian woman, who we later found out her parents were actively involved in the Ku Klux Klan, was in the middle of this campus and said to him, I'm so glad you're not like the other niggers. That moment really brought great pause to him because it really began to pose the question for him as a young adult from this experience in 8th grade. Was racism really so heightened because of color? Or what did the role of economics have to do with race in this country? And really, was it about Black or white? Or was the real colored question the green? So, having had this experience, it connected him even more to this other young brother that grew up in Southwest Atlanta that had many times been told, by virtue of your environment and where you grew up, you may have a challenging future. But now let's not forget the other brother who, really was really tokened as having a successful career, and what a great opportunity having worked with some of the great leaders of our city. But what was interesting in many cases, he was still very much in certain circles, no matter the success of his career, no matter who he worked for, still viewed and engaged with as a Black male. Ironically, one time he told me this story about the time that he happened to live in the Lenox Woods community. And if you're not familiar with Lenox Woods, it's a neighborhood just kind of catty corner to Ansley Park. And he was coming home one evening, he drove a Mercedes. At that time, he was still working for one of the top officials in the city. And, it was interesting enough that as he came home from a late night, having been at work, ironically, he saw all of a sudden the blue lights of, guess what, a police car. They happened to, just casually follow him slowly all the way to the back of his house. Now, so needless, I don't need to share that just that instance really then connected him back to the young brother that grew up in Southwest Atlanta. And now, even more so, back to this young brother who went to this amazing private school. Now, the way that these 3 brothers got to all know each other is because they all happened to share in the same faith experience. And it was through that faith experience that connected them and really helped them to understand that racism really was one of the most challenging issues confronting America today. And that they were not to be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their color. And this same spiritual journey that related to them as Black people being related as the pupil of the eye. So even though they each uniquely came from 3 different experiences in their life experience, there was still this one connection. But the ironic part about it, and this is really the irony of the whole story, that also the same thing that connected these 3 brothers is that they came from the same mother and father. For these 3 individuals, we will refer to make the story all come together as me, myself, and I. So yes, the story of the young brother in Southwest Atlanta, the story of the young brother who went to one of the top 5 private schools in the nation, and the story of the young brother who sat at the helm and worked for some of our greatest leaders and was connected and impacted by the lives of some of our amazing and powerful civil rights leaders. Well, the story of these 3 brothers is the story of Imara Canady. So as I continue to just thank God for my journey and thank God for my parents who taught me that all things were possible, and to thank God for individuals in my life and the village that surrounded me and lifted me up, today, when I think about what does Juneteenth mean to me and what does the freedom and the emancipation mean, it means that really, yes, we still have some work to do. And yes, there are still many things to overcome as we deal with the ills of racism in our communities. But yes, can emancipate ourselves, whether it be spiritually or whether it be through knowing that all things are possible in the eyes of God. Thank you, Horizon, for this wonderful opportunity to share my story and to share the story of me, myself, and I.
Thank you, Imara.
Wow, that was great.
That was
Imara, is your mom there? Is your mom
Yeah.
sitting next to you? Put her on screen for a second. Hey, Jen, how you doing? Good to see you. How's it going?
She's listened to this story like, I know how this ends, and all of
She knows it all too well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of speechless.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was
Amara,
not
you've had just an
expecting that.
amazing journey in life through all those different paths, and your mom too. You know, your mom's seen you through a lot for sure.
Yeah. Well, and Lisa, I really do. I mean, when you asked me, I felt like I told Megan that I felt like that was the stories that I wanted to tell, because there are so many individuals, and I thank God for my mother and father who really did believe in the village and recognized that, as a young child, that it was okay if I didn't come to them with everything, because they trusted the village and the people of the village. Some who are on the performance with us this evening,
Oh, yeah.
to just be a part of nurturing me and guiding me. And and I always say, people in your life, true people, true friends, and true, like your true ride or dies, are those folks who lift you up when you need to be lifted up, but also who call you to account with no judgment and with a lot of love when you just need to be told that's not really the right thing that you needed to do. So I thank God for all of those individuals, across this journey, including you, Lisa. Megan was laughing when I told her that I started my journey at Horizon as house manager and have continued my journey at Horizon as a board member.
I know.
Which shows all things are possible. Yeah, you can go from cleaning the toilets to helping to provide funding.
Yes.
I know. It's my funny thing about talking about theater people is it's always the people that go, I don't think I want to be an actor, but I don't exactly know what I want to do, that end up doing the most amazing things like you, and influencing so many people and so many organizations, and using your influence, your connections to lift up so many in every way, and following your passions. I think it's such a tribute that you were able to follow all of your passions. I don't know how you follow them all at the same time, but somehow you do. So
Really read all of the things.
I know.
So good.
I know. Yeah.
So accomplished. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you,
It's so
Brittany.
great hearing your story. I was genuinely not expecting it. So I knew, and then you said they all came from the same mother and father, and I was like, oh, 3 brothers, and then myself and I was like, bam, bam. So thank you. Such a beautiful
Oh.
story. Thank you for sharing. So inspiring, just to keep going. And a lot of us feel like, a lot of Black people feel like we can't overcome the situations that we're in, and we can, and you're a testament to that. So thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
Yeah.
thank you.
It's all about building that village, and you are helping to build that village of those that lift up. So it's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Lisa. But I have to just close. I really, I thank God for my parents and grandparents, and who really just blessed me. And my mother taught me early on There's a saying, I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and there's a saying, a quote from the Baha'i writings, and that's really, that work done in the spirit of service is like worshiping God. So I just really, as I think about anything that I'm blessed to the opportunity to do, to keep it in that mindset, and to know that all things are possible. And I don't know if that's always a good thing, because I tell people, I don't understand no. I don't know how no is an answer. So, so thank you all. And I'm looking forward to the next story.
Yay.
We have one more. Thank you.
You guys are doing an amazing job. I can't believe I've gone the journey with you from the airport to my porch. So, and they're all amazing.
It's been great. It's been great.
So great. You didn't see it coming, right?
I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming. So for the audience to know, I missed the Mars because I was late doing a birthday party, but I like to pop on, say hey to our storytellers, and then Megan hears the stories and she texts me. She's like, that one was so great. And just wait, Brittany, till you hear it.
There's a twist.
Right? I was not expecting that.
Even earlier today, Lisa was like, well, what's this thing? I'm like, I'm not gonna say.
I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say. Yeah. I think we have one more trivia question. You guys still with us? We have one more.
Great.
Okay. Let's see if we can get 100% on this one with all the Juneteenth clues we've dropped in. All right, come on, guys. You can do it. Everybody vote. Or what is it, vote when it's a trivia question? It's not vote, right?
I don't know.
Vote's good. Vote works.
Vote's good.
Works.
Vote's good. Okay.
I vote that vote works. See what I did?
Come on, guys. I'm waiting to see 50 people participating. Well, I guess we're counting the 50, so never mind.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Okay, come on, guys. They got it.
Yes.
All of the above.
80, 65. Okay, wait, it's dropping.
Wait. Are we giving it away?
He was like 71% in this for a second. Well, the answer is all of the above.
All the above. All the above. That's right. That's right. I thought the answer was going to be Emancipation Day, right? And started looking up, and in different states, they adopted different names. And so it is also known as all these things.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, we have one more storyteller this evening.
All these stories tonight, our storytellers tonight have been incredible.
They've been so good. Yeah. And I'm sure the Horizon family is ready for our last storyteller.
Oh, 100%.
This gentleman is no stranger to the Horizon. Mr. Thomas W. Jones II has directed, written, and performed in over 200 plays worldwide. Tom founded Jumanji Productions, where as co-artistic and producing director, Tom led Jumanji to become the third largest African-American theater in the United States. His work as a writer, director, and actor has been acclaimed nationally and internationally. I was personally honored and thankful to be directed by him in Horizon's Sweetwater Taste in the summer of 2019. Thank you for the job, Tom. Welcome, Horizon favorite, Tom Jones.
Well, thank you. I feel like woefully artistically underdressed after Tina and Keena and Eugene and Imara. I am not the finale. I should have been the opening act, because all of what they had to say was not only extraordinary and amazing, but also I think ushered in why it is that, why this platform is such a wonderful platform, and the two of you, the three of you, giving opportunities to tell our stories, because stories connect us to a past, and they remind us that there's a possibility of a future, that we tell our children stories because we want to give them a sense of themselves, who they are in the world. And for us, I think today, in particular, and coming over this past weekend, what keeps popping into my mind is about celebration. That, it's Kool and the Gang, celebrate good times, come on. Having gone through the year that we've come through, having gone through, the century that we've come through, having gone through the last decade, that is all about a celebration. And so for me, the fact that Friday was signed into a federal holiday, Juneteenth, is the culmination of, I think, a struggle of a people, from 1865, from 1619, the struggle of a people coming to this particular place, this new world, not being given the opportunity want towards what the entitlement and the beauty of what freedom is, not being able to partake in that, not knowing that every man was not created equal, that we were part of a 3/5 folks, coming out of all of that tradition and history to come to this place in 2021 where we can say our emancipation from the evils of what slavery was, that it's now a federal holiday. I think one is reason for celebration. And it took me back to, first of all, it took me back to the stories of my mother and father as we used to gather in our living room. Coming through the 1960s was a different kind of time. Every couple of years, we had to celebrate somewhat, not celebrate, we had to kind of boost each other up because someone was, one of our leaders, one of our heroes or hero was being gunned down, was being killed. We came through the decade of televised assassination. And so for us, losing Medgar Evers and losing Malcolm X and losing Martin Luther King Jr. and losing John Kennedy and losing Robert Kennedy and losing the 4 kids at Kent State and losing the 4 kids at Jackson State and losing George Jackson and losing Jonathan Jackson and losing a litany of men and women and Schwerner Goodman Cheney and Viola Liuzzo and those who put their lives on the line so that at some point it wasn't about the emancipation of 1865, it was about trying to make a nation whole again, trying to find the soul of a nation, trying to redeem and find reconciliation in this kind of racial divide. But we would gather in our living rooms to edify each other. And those stories about Malcolm and Martin and talking about their importance in our lives became a means for them not only to keep us alive and connect us to the future, but also in a sense to celebrate the beauty and the power and the majesty of who we were and all of our majesty and non-majesty. And I remember in 1965, I was a kid, maybe 9 years old. And I remember my father and my uncle and gathering in our living room, and they were talking about a man named Malcolm X. And they weren't talking about him from the vantage point of being a leader, and they weren't talking about him from the vantage point of, of this man who came through from prison, and this man who then became the leader of Nation of Islam, and then came out and became this Black nationalist leader, and then became this kind of world figure. They talked to him about the power of losing a friend. And it didn't realize that my father was Malcolm's doctor, and he was their children's doctors, and that my uncle was there at the ballroom on the night that Malcolm was assassinated. And at the point that they looked at that, for them, it was a bunch of men that were sitting around making sure that their children could hear that these were men, that these were human beings, that these were folks who had families, that these were folks who had lives. My father used to tell me that they would gather at Malcolm's house very often after he would take care of the children because he was the doctor. And Malcolm would just have friends over and they would sit in the house and they would just talk. And he said what the loss was after Malcolm's house was blown up, saying, I can't afford for you to come to the house anymore because I don't want to put you in danger. Jettisoning 3 years later and realizing that when King died, that my father and his friends, they were part of the Howard University delegation of folks that did the March on Washington, that they were folks, that these were their friends, these were folks who that were a part of the fabric of their lives, that they were, in a certain sense, had an intimacy with these folks, not because they were leaders, but because they were human beings just trying to make a difference in their own lives and in the world. Such so that when I graduated college in 1978, what I took with me from those stories was that you had to build something and you had to leave something behind, that you had to build for a family, you had to build for your children, you had to build for a community. And more than anything, what was empowered and what was important about stories was that they had to uplift us. Even if the stories of those of us who were slaves and those of us who came through hard times, that the stories at the end had to be about empowering us to be able to reach the next day. It was part of that code switching that we always did. Wade in the water during slavery was not just simply about a personal baptism. It was about it was about us communicating to those runaway slaves, run to the waters because the greyhounds can't catch you. We have always used stories in terms of our community, not only to edify, but to build us up. All that as a prologue to talk about when we created something called the Juneteenth celebration in Jumandy. It was about that Kool in the Gang, celebrate good times, come on. It was about taking a community and celebrating them. I first heard of Juneteenth knowing nothing about it growing up in New York. When I went with my co-artistic director, Marsha Jackson, we were in Houston, Texas. and we were touring, and it was around 1979 and 1980, and they were getting ready for something called the Juneteenth celebration. And I kept going, what is a Juneteenth? Why is it June 16th? Is it June 19th? Is it June 20th? What is a Juneteenth? Do y'all not, and this Northern arrogance, do you not know that there's a date? There's a whole lot of teams. There's a 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Can you lock in a day and figure what that is out? And it wasn't until the community said, no, the reason why they called it Juneteenth was because the news of emancipation and freedom reached different communities on different days. That it wasn't, you couldn't Google it. There wasn't a cell phone. There wasn't a CNN. There wasn't even hip hop. There wasn't anything to tell you, so that the news of our freedom hit us in different times. And so rather than deal with the 13th or the 17th or the 25th or the 12th when it came, they said, let's do Juneteenth, call it the 19th, hit it in the middle. And from that moment, it was about, we're going to celebrate who we are, why we are, in a way that's very different. And it's not just for Black folks, but celebrate the beauty and the spirit of being emancipated, being free, being, in a sense, being able for the first time to participate in what this thing is called a democracy. And we want everybody to engage in it. It should be a celebration for all of us. So we're going to have Juneteenth. And that was 1980. And it was like, wow, okay, that's really fly. To have that as a counterpoint to July 4th, what we all celebrate is July 4th. Okay, yeah, we can do that. And so over the course of the years, when Jumanji, we would do our shows, and at the end of the year, we were trying to have a celebration, right? We would try to gather either the actors at the end of the year, because as a poor, struggling theater company, we couldn't pay people on a per show basis. We were paying people $25, right? And since we were using all of these people for 4 and 5 shows, maybe at the end of the year, we could give somebody $200. So rather than just give them $25, we would gather everybody, all the actors, and we would have this big party at the end of the year, and we would give them their check, and it would be a celebration, again, of the artists, their work, the sacrifice they made to make our theater company become something. It became truly kind of significant for us, because our theater company called Jumanji, J-O for Jones, my last name, M-A for Mom, my mother, A-N for Andrea, my sister, D-I for Diana, my other sister. That was how we came up. It was an amalgam of our family's names. We found out a year after we had put it together, right about 1980, because we formed in 78. Right about 1980, 81, we found out from one of the artistic directors of the National Dance Company of Senegal that what Jumanji meant in one of the ancient Senegalese dialects, where people gathered together in celebration. And it was like, okay, so this is prophetic. Now maybe we're supposed to be here. And again, that idea of celebration, celebrating your story, celebration kept being the centerpiece, the axis upon which we all orbited. So jump to maybe 4 or 5 years later, as we continue the development of our theater, we decide about mid to late 80s that we want to have an ending year celebration, again, not only for the artists, but also for the subscribers, also for volunteers, also for all of the people that, again, tried to build and help build a theater that were telling stories of who we are and what we are, and celebrate the fact that it was because of that collective synergy. As Imara said, because it was a village, we want to celebrate the village. So we would bring them all together at the end of the year. And we would have these wonderful kind of like parties. So the first time we had was in John A. White Park, and maybe there were 200-300 people that came, with the artists and our supporters and volunteers and folks. And we would have artists to celebrate. We'd have drums going. We'd have them, And we said, well, this is a good idea. We looked and said, we should do this every year. And they said, well, we should call it a Juneteenth celebration. Since it's in June, it's at the end. We said, yeah. Juneteenth, going back to 1980, going back to Houston, Texas, going back to March and Jackson, when we were running around the city of Houston doing these shows, and we could hear people talking about, yeah, we're celebrating Juneteenth. 2 big things in Houston: Black Rodeo in February, Juneteenth celebration in June. So it was like, yeah, we should import that, bring that to Atlanta. So we decided, okay, we're gonna have a Juneteenth celebration. That second year, we had it again at, I think, John A. White Park or one of the state parks. And this time we had about 500 or 600 people, and that was great. And we said, we should just really make this as big an event as we can. So the next year we decided, well, let's get a group. Let's get a signature headlining group, and we'll have the artists, and we'll do a couple of stages like a mini festival. And this will be just a celebration. We go and we said, okay, in our 3rd year, we get permit to do Grant Park. I said, well, this is great, we'll do Grant Park. So much to the left hand not knowing what the right hand was doing, we decided we would get the Parliament Funkadelics. Who better than One Nation Under a Groove to have as our signature act? Well, they were on tour with Ohio Players. So it was, well, if you take Parliament Funkadelics, you got to take Ohio Players. So we said, well, hey, fire. I like Ohio Players. Funky Worm. I grew up on that bass line. I grew up on Sugarfoot. So let's have the Ohio Players and P-Funk. Meanwhile, we'll have them on the main stage in the evening, and then we'll have all of our celebrations. We'll have kids' stories on one side with some of the artists that did children's stories. We'll have our groups, you know, because some of the actors, they had their own singing groups, and we would do excerpts from whatever. We'll have this whole day. And maybe we can get a radio station to sponsor it. Well, luck of all luck, we get the two major radio stations, 104, which was like kind of old school R&B, and then B103, which was the #1 urban station. Magically, they never would co-sign on and co-produce something and in one event in the same. They're always vying for different markets. We got both of them to come along. We had all the signage. So they're blasting. There's going to be this Juneteenth celebration. Come on out. It's in June. It's at Grand Park. We got Ohio Players. We've got, you know, Parliament Funkadelics. We've got on the other side all kind of Jumanji artists. And it's going to be wonderful. You're going to love it. So we get there, and we went from 600 people that year. There's 150,000 people in Grand Park. It's a sea of black, brown, yellow, mulatto, tan, beige. It is just a sea of humanity. People were sitting up on top roofs. It got so bad that on I-20 coming east and west, the lines were almost 2 to 3 miles back. People parked on the side and said, well, I just can't get there. So I'm going to park my car and I'm going to walk to Grant Park. So there's a mile of cars on both sides. Traffic is just locked. It's great. And we're in Grant Park, and there's literally 150,000 people. It is jammed. By that evening, the whole park, you could just feel it jump. By the time P-Funk came out, George Clinton with all of those braids down pink and yellow down there, and they broke out with "The Mothership Has Landed," game, set, match. The park is jumping. It is crazy. It is mass bedlam. We had to hire a certain amount of policemen per capita of how many people were going to be there. So we had to think about maybe somewhere between 60 and 100 police, because we anticipated maybe we'd have 10, 15,000 people. I looked over to one of the policemen and said, so what happens if something goes up? He said, oh, we're just for show. If this thing gets out of hand, there's a riot going on. There's nothing we can do. You know, we're gonna hunt head for cover if this thing turns. But it was like Black Woodstock. I mean, you looked out and said, this is just an unbelievable experience to be in the crowd, jumping up and down at one time to this kind of funk crew, and you realize the park is just packed. And when you look to the right of you, you see people. To the left of you, you see people. To the front, you see people. To the back, you see people. And you're just jumping. And I kept thinking, oh my goodness, what is this event going to become? You know, if it's 150 this year, I know we could hit 1 million if we do. No, but having said all that, there was what really impressed me was there was somewhere in the park during the course of the day, and it was just crazy that somebody came in and they took some woman's purse, right? They grabbed it off her arm and they started to run. They snatched the purse, and she had all her money and the valuables, and she's screaming. 50 people surrounded these two cats who had taken the purse, and they just looked at them and said, not today, it's Juneteenth. You're not doing this today. They took the purse, they gave it back to the woman, and they escorted those gentlemen and said, we're not gonna do anything to you, we're gonna escort, but this is not what it is. And at that point, I realized what the power of a culture is, what the power of the culture can do, what the power of our stories do, what the power it is of traditions we pass on from one generation to the next. So for me, the memorializing of a holiday, there is no drawback in terms of making Juneteenth a federal holiday. I don't want to hear the skeptics. I don't care about the pessimism. People died and shed blood so that we could take a day, an hour, a life to celebrate who we are and our humanity. And so if you're a detractor, if you're a hater, you got to step to the side. That's not what this is about. Too much blood has been spent for us to be able to stand up and say, yeah, not only do you recognize our emancipation, but the world should be celebrated. And it's a gift, not only to ourselves, but to everybody else. That's my Juneteenth story. That's all I got.
That's all you got? That's a whole lot.
That's all I got.
Oh, man.
Oh, Tom, thank
So
you.
Tom, next Juneteenth, are you resurrecting with the help of
No, I'm going to leave that to Tina and Keena and Eugene and Lisa and Megan and Brittany. I'm going to pass that. Yeah, no, yes, Tina. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. It's up to them now. Passing it on to the next generation. So, Tom, how long did Juneteenth continue after that, or was that the end? That was like,
we were at Grant Park for the next year. They said there's just too many people in our neighborhood. No, thank you, but no, you can't do that. So we ended up doing it. We skipped that year. We ended up doing down at Underground Atlanta. We did what we call the Labor of Love right around Labor Day. And we had, we had Dionne Farris. She had just released her album. So we had her. She just come out of Arrested Development. We had Jean Carn, who was like, back from Norman Conner Day. So we had a wonderful celebration. And then the next year after that, they said, yeah, sure, okay, you can come back. We just needed a year off. So we come back a year after that, and now we have the Barcades, hit and run Barcades, right? They're our headliner group. We do the same. Again, this time 175,000 people.
Oh my God.
The park is just again jumping. At that point, the neighborhood said, no. Juneteenth, no, you can't. No, you can't come back. That's too, because again, the I-20 on both sides, people can't get. Yeah, it was insane. But those were, so we continue to try and have a celebration. But again, each year, I think we kept it for about 10 years, and then we started doing two things. We did a legacy awards where we would award those, and then we would continue with Juneteenth in a smaller kind of way. I remember what was it? Lakewood Amphitheater wanted to host us one year, and it was like, okay, but that was Juneteenth. And that's what struck me,
That's amazing.
Those are great. I've heard a lot of your stories come, but I actually haven't heard that story about Malcolm X and your family, your dad. I never heard that before. That's there's
a Netflix series that says Who Killed Malcolm X. It's a documentary in 4-part, and it's about this kind of bus driver, not bus driver. He's a tour driver in DC, and he goes hunting, looking for the actual killer of Malcolm X. And in the first 15 minutes, there's my uncle Calvin, talking about what it was to be in that ball, and what it was. In fact, there's Hammond's house. Hammond's house here in Atlanta that's named after Dr. Otis Hammond. He was the physician on call at Harlem Hospital trying to save Malcolm. And he was one of the, and what that was, but yeah, that was Pops. Yeah, my father was, and we would see, we would go, my sisters working often, they would see, one of my sisters just hated blood. So she decided, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something else. But yeah, I remember being there, and you would see them, come in, and I had no idea who this, he was a tall man, with at that point a goatee, and, you'd see him, but I had no idea who this was. But my father and 4 of his partners, they had a black medical center that was in Corona. And so there, a lot of the folks, once, people started moving out of Harlem and moving into these suburbs, they would move into different communities, Corona being one of them, Hollis, Jamaica, in New York. So, he was Louis Armstrong's doctor. He was Miles Davis' doctor. He was one of Duke Ellington's doctors when he would coming down. He was Malcolm's doctor. He was Farrakhan's doctor, because they all lived in that neighborhood. And so part of what their medical center was one of the first Black medical centers that was in that, was in that community. And so they became, in a certain sense, medical resource. Well, growing up, we always had chickens and apple pies and whatever it was, because back in those days, my father still did house calls, and there was never a patient that he would say no to. So if they couldn't pay, it didn't matter, so they would always call him Doc Jones, and he would come in, they would, so we'd have chickens, or we would have pies, what is this? This is from patient so-and-so and so-and-so. But their motto was, we will never say no to anybody who needs help. And so for him, he was universal. He believed passionately in universal health care. He actually testified in front of the Congress in like 68, 69 about universal health care and what that meant and what that, he was actually, it was a group that was the Latino version of the Black Panthers called the Young Lords. And in New York, he was actually the health commissioner at that time in Harlem after he left his practice. And he was the one who gave them this community health truck so that they could, so that they in fact could deal with community medicine and having, health resources in their community. So, I mean, he was always, an advocate for that from just as a physician, but those were his folks. We would always just, sit and laugh and say, okay, Pop got another chicken. His patients would not allow him. Every 2 years, he would get a Cadillac, right? That was the, and he was like, I just don't want to buy a Cadillac. I'm tired of having a Cadillac. It's like it's big, and I want a Pinto. It was like a Malibu. And his patients came to him in mass and said, Dr. Jones, we can't come to a doctor who drives a Malibu. It reflects on us. It makes us look bad. If our doctor is driving, it means that you can't. So you have to have. So it wasn't until he moved from New York to Atlanta that he said, I am done. The first car he bought when he got to Atlanta was a Ford Mustang. That's it. No more Cadillac. And so well after his expiration date of a Cadillac, he was done with it, but his patients said, we have to know that our doctor is successful. And if you're driving a Malibu, you're doctor. Yeah, you're not successful. It must be patients are dying if you're right. Yeah.
Right. Not good. So Tom, you always are telling in the next story and the next story. What's the next story that you're telling now? What are you working on? What's coming up?
A couple of things. One, I'm working here in Las Vegas with West Las Vegas Performing Arts Center with young people telling their stories, kind of like their own personal in the heights about West Las Vegas. Speaking of holidays, working on a commission called Overcome on the making of the King holiday in Arizona, which was the last one to come online, and how they really, the work against that, and the work of a man named Pastor Warren Stewart, who kind of spearheaded the whole campaign to get a holiday, doing that. Working as a lyricist in a piece called Bar Mitzvah in Birmingham. Just to, the check is there. And for Horizon Theater, I'm doing a piece on the making of the Royal Peacock, Sweet Auburn Avenue, and a woman named Carrie Cunningham, who was kind of this amazing woman who not only had who bought the Peacock and brought it into this prominence, but also had the largest 5-star hotel that Black performers stayed in. And so that was part of the history. That is a wonderful commission from Lisa Adler and Horizon Theater. Thank you.
And your CT Vivian piece is going up too, yeah.
Thank you. And we just finished a musical, and we're getting ready to start rehearsal on a musical on the life of Reverend C.T. Vivian. That was actually commissioned by a man named Chris Davis, for the family. So we actually we did it last year for Emory's Brave New World series, and for him and 40 people in the family. And it was actually his last public performance. And he stood up, and I think all of us were just kind of moved. At that point, he had his second stroke. He could barely talk. He could talk, but it's barely audible. And the last thing he said is, I need everybody within the sound of my voice to not only see this musical, but to say that they have a role in the freedom struggle for the next generation.
Wow.
And so it was his last public appearance. And I think all of us were just kind of, at some point, once he died, and we went like, wow. But the big thing was to get his eyeballs on it, to make sure that he endorsed it and said, this is the story. If you're going to tell a story of my life, this is the story I want. So it's basically, it's called For Peace I Rise, the TV musical. It's a love story between a man, a movement, a man, a woman, and a movement. And so it's about he and his wife and the sacrifices one makes to try and struggle and fight for freedom. So.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Tom,
Thank
stay
you.
right there. Let's bring up all of our performers tonight. All of our performers, come on up. Woo! Woo! Let's give them a huge round of applause. yourselves real quick and give our performers a big round of applause.
Yay! Woo! Yay! Love it. So happy.
Yay! You guys, our next show is Monday, July 12th. And that is going to have a summer theme with family fun and vacations, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Also, if you audience member, have a story to tell, please email us at southbound@horizontheater.com. And again, everyone, let's one more round of applause. Thank you, all our storytellers.
And we're going to be virtual for another few times, but then eventually Southbound's going to go live at the Horizon Theater. So look out for that when we come back sometime soon. Thank you again to all of our sponsors, and thank you all for being with us. Such a pleasure to have everybody.
That's our show, everybody. So I'm Megan.
I'm Brittany.
And this was Southbound, True Life Tales
from the ATL and Beyond.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you for this.